The gun went off, and Vincent's body dropped to the floor. The sound echoed through the empty warehouse. Roman stood there holding his gun. He didn't even blink. His expensive watch felt heavier than the weapon in his hand. He stepped over the body carefully. His fancy shoes avoided the blood spreading across the concrete. "Clean this mess up." He said it like he was ordering coffee, and send flowers to his wife. White roses. Tell her he was thinking about her when he died. It was a lie. Vincent had been crying and begging about his kids. But Roman didn't care about that stuff. In his world, traitors got bullets, not second chances. He walked outside into the cold November night. Chicago wind hit his face hard. 3 big black cars were waiting for him, engines running. His security guys were ready with their guns. This was his city. He built it with violence, he kept it with fear, and he decorated it with more money than most people could imagine. Roman got into the middle car. He pulled out his phone. 12 missed calls. 8 from girls whose names he'd forget by tomorrow. 3 from his second in command, Marcus. 1 from his mom back in Sicily. She still pretended her son wasn't doing terrible things. He ignored all of them. Take me to the Red Room. That was his fancy club downtown, where rich people came to do bad things in the dark. The leather seat felt comfortable as they drove. Roman saw his reflection in the dark window. Sharp face. Dark eyes that held too many secrets. Perfect hair that looked messy but wasn't. He was 34 years old. He'd built an empire that made regular businessmen jealous and made cops desperate to catch him. Women threw themselves at him constantly. Senators' daughters, supermodels, girls who wanted danger wrapped in expensive suits. He took what he wanted, enjoyed it, then forgot about them. Love was just a fairy tale for people who couldn't afford reality. His phone buzzed, a text from Angela. "Last week's girlfriend. Missing you, baby. Come over tonight." He deleted it without replying. The Red Room was packed and loud. Red lights made everything look mysterious. Roman walked through the private entrance. The whole room changed when people saw him. Everyone turned to look. Whispers started spreading. The most dangerous man in Chicago had arrived. Mr. Roman. His club manager ran over looking nervous. "Your table is ready, sir." "Not tonight, Marcus." Roman's eyes scanned the VIP section, looking at faces, checking for threats, looking for opportunities. Then something made him stop. A woman sat alone at a corner table, and she wasn't looking at him. That never happened. She had dark hair falling over her bare shoulders, a black dress that looked classy but sexy, a face that looked like it belonged in an art museum. She was beautiful. Really beautiful. But that's not what caught his attention. It was how she completely ignored him. She stared at her wine glass like it was more interesting than him, the most powerful man in the room. Roman walked toward her before he could think about it. "This section is private." He stood over her table, waiting for her to get nervous, or excited, or scared. She looked up slowly. Her eyes were gray like a storm. They held something he couldn't figure out. Not attraction, not fear. Something darker and more dangerous. "Then you should hire better security." Her voice had an accent he couldn't place, smooth but sharp at the same time. I walked right in without anyone stopping me. Roman almost smiled. This girl was bold. Stupid maybe, but definitely bold. "Do you know who I am?" "Should I?" She took a sip of wine. Totally calm. "Let me guess. Rich, entitled, probably dangerous, used to getting everything you want." "You're not wrong." He sat down without being invited. Now he was really interested. Except the probably part. There's nothing probably about it. She studied him like an artist studying something she planned to destroy. "You have blood on your shirt cuff." Roman looked down quickly, a tiny spot of red on his white sleeve. Invisible unless you looked really close. Vincent's blood, his last mark on the world. Roman looked back at her. Something electric passed between them, like two dangerous people recognizing each other. Occupational hazard. He said it smoothly. What kind of job needs blood? The kind that pays for clubs like this. He waved for champagne, his attention completely fixed on her now. Most women either got scared or threw themselves at him by now. She did neither. What's your name? Does it matter? Everything matters when I want it to. Isabella. She said it like a challenge. Isabella Martinez. Spanish last name. That explained the slight accent under her American English. Roman's brain immediately started working, connecting dots, searching for connections in his world. There were probably dozens of Martinez families. The name meant nothing, but also meant everything. You come here often. Isabella Martinez? First time. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Thought I'd see what all the fuss was about. They talked for 20 minutes, or maybe it was more like verbal fighting. She was smart, quick with her words, not impressed by money or power. Every woman Roman had ever known wanted something from him. Isabella seemed to want him gone. It was fascinating. When she stood up to leave, Roman found himself standing too. Something weird was happening in his chest. Not just desire. That was normal and easy to control. This was different. Curiosity mixed with something that felt dangerously like actual interest. Let me drive you home, he offered. I'd rather walk through fire. But there was heat in her eyes that said something different than her words. She moved past him, leaving behind perfume that smelled like flowers and secrets. Roman watched her disappear through the crowd. His instincts were humming warnings he couldn't understand. Then he saw it. On the floor where she'd been sitting, a photograph lay face down. Roman picked it up and turned it over. His world tilted sideways. The photo was old and yellow at the edges. It showed a man in his mid-40s, kind eyes, Italian features. Standing outside a restaurant, Roman knew immediately. Next to the man was a young girl, maybe 13 years old. Dark hair and gray eyes even back then. But the girl wasn't what made Roman's blood run cold. It was the man, Miguel Martinez, the informant he'd personally killed 5 years ago, in that restaurant's back room, following Don Ricardo's direct orders. The traitor who was going to expose 3 families to the FBI. The problem Roman had solved with 2 bullets and a shallow grave. Roman's hand tightened on the photograph. He looked toward the exit where Isabella had disappeared. Martinez. Isabella Martinez, the daughter he never knew existed, had just walked into his club, sat at his table, looked him in the eyes, and walked away like she owned the world he'd built on her father's corpse. This wasn't an accident. This was war. And Roman had just fallen. For the opening move without even knowing the game started. Roman didn't sleep that night. He stood in his fancy apartment overlooking the lake, the photograph of Miguel Martinez burning a hole in his pocket. The city lights below twinkled like dying stars. The whiskey in his hand had gone warm an hour ago. He hadn't touched it. Miguel Martinez. The name kept circling his mind like a vulture. 5 years ago, Don Ricardo had called him to his private office. The place smelled like cigars and old violence. "We have a rat," the old man had said. He slid a file across the desk. Miguel Martinez. He's been feeding information to an FBI agent named Morrison. Names, locations, shipment routes. 3 families are at risk. Roman had looked at the photographs. A middle-aged man with gentle eyes. Too gentle for their world. You're certain? Wiretaps. Bank records. He's been paid $40,000 over 6 months. Ricardo's voice carried the weight of a judge passing sentence. This is your test, Roman. Handle it cleanly. No witnesses, no mercy. And Roman had. because that's what soldiers did. They followed orders, pulled triggers, buried bodies, didn't ask questions that kept them awake at night, but now those questions were screaming in his head. He pulled out his phone, dialed a number he only used for big problems. "It's 4 a.m, boss," Tony answered. His voice thick with sleep and annoyance. "I need everything on Miguel Martinez. The informant we handled in 2020. Family connections. Everything we missed." A pause on the line. "That case is closed, boss. Why are we reopening it? Because his daughter just walked into my club. And I want to know if she's planning to put a bullet in my head or just ruin my life slowly." Roman's voice could cut glass. "I want it in 2 hours." He hung up before Tony could respond. The sun was rising over Chicago when the file arrived. Roman opened it. With each line he read, the knot in his chest got tighter. Miguel Martinez. Age 46 at time of death. Owner of Martinez's restaurant. Front for money laundering and minor operations. Wife deceased from cancer in 2015. 1 daughter. Isabella Marie Martinez. Age 19 at time of father's death. Currently 24, architecture student at Columbia University. Dropped out in 2021. No criminal record. Current residence unknown. Known associates none flagged. But it was the note at the bottom that made Roman's blood freeze. Additional note. Subject's father was executed based on evidence provided by Don Ricardo. Recent investigation suggests intelligence may have been made up. Martinez's alleged FBI contact Agent Morrison denied any informant relationship under oath during unrelated trial 2023. Credibility of original evidence now questionable. Roman read it 3 times, each word landing like a punch to the gut. Made up evidence. No FBI contact. An innocent man executed. He'd killed an innocent man. Not just any man. Isabella's father. The realization should have brought guilt. But Roman had buried that emotion so deep only rage could surface. Rage at being used. Rage at Ricardo for the lie. Rage at himself for not questioning orders. And underneath it all, something far more dangerous. The memory of gray eyes that looked at him like he was already dead. Isabella Martinez sat in the bathroom of her tiny studio apartment, staring at the photograph she'd copied 100 times. The original was still in Roman's possession now. Exactly as planned. Let him know. Let him realize who she was. Let him spend sleepless nights wondering when the knife would come. Her hands shook slightly as she set the photo down. 5 years of pain compressed into this single moment of satisfaction. She could still see her father's face that last morning, kissing her forehead before heading to the restaurant. "I have a meeting tonight, mija. Important business. When I get back, we'll talk about your future. Columbia is waiting for you," but he never came back. The police found his body 3 days later, in a drainage ditch outside the city. 2 bullets in the chest, 1 in the head. Execution style. The detective had been sympathetic but clear. "Your father was involved with dangerous people, Miss Martinez." "I'm sorry." She'd spent 2 years drowning in grief and rage, dropping out of school, working dead-end jobs, until she'd met Uncle Victor at her father's grave one rainy afternoon. "Your father was murdered by Roman," Victor had told her. Rainwater mixing with her tears. The family used him, then threw him away like trash when they thought he was a liability. "I can give you the truth, Isabella, and I can give you revenge." Victor had trained her. Combat, seduction, infiltration. He'd given her a new identity, new papers, and most importantly, a purpose. She'd spent 3 years becoming someone who could get close to Roman, someone who could make him pay. And last night, Phase 1 had worked perfectly. Her phone buzzed, a text from Victor. He took the bait. "Next phase begins tomorrow. You'll receive instructions. Don't fail me, niece." Isabella stared at the message, something cold settling in her stomach. This was what she wanted. Justice. Revenge. Her father's ghost could finally rest. So why did Roman's eyes keep haunting her? Why did she remember the way he'd looked at her? Not with the predatory hunger she'd expected, but with genuine curiosity. As if she were a puzzle he wanted to solve, rather than a conquest to claim. She crushed, the thought like she'd crushed every soft emotion for 5 years. Roman was a monster. Monsters didn't deserve mercy. 24 hours later, Isabella received her assignment. Roman owned a private art gallery downtown, money laundering through million-dollar paintings. She was to pose as an art consultant, get hired. Get close. The interview was scheduled for 3 p.m. She arrived at 2:45, dressed in a cream blouse and tailored pants. Professional, but attractive. The gallery was elegant. Marble floors, high ceilings, art that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. And there, standing before a painting, was Roman. He didn't turn around when she entered, but his voice carried across the empty space. Judith slaying the general who tried to conquer her city. Interesting choice for a first impression, don't you think? Isabella's heels clicked against marble as she approached. I didn't choose it. You were already here. But you came anyway. Now he turned. The impact hit her again. That dangerous beauty, those eyes that seemed to see through carefully constructed lies. He was wearing all black today, making him look like a dark angel. Isabella Martinez, architecture dropout turned art consultant. Impressive resume for someone who supposedly has no connections in this city. So he'd researched her. Good. Let him dig. Her false background was perfect. I have an eye for beauty and authenticity, she said, meeting his gaze without flinching. Your gallery deals in both, supposedly. Supposedly. A dangerous smile. You doubt my taste? I doubt everything until proven otherwise. They circled each other like wolves, the painting watching their dance with painted eyes. Roman moved closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Something expensive and dark, like smoke and buried secrets. Why do you want to work for me, Isabella? Because I want to destroy you. Because you murdered my father. Because every breath you take is an insult to his memory. Because I'm good at what I do, she said instead. And because working for the devil has better benefits than serving heaven. Something flashed in his eyes. Amusement, respect, suspicion. All tangled together. You called me the devil. You haven't corrected me. The silence stretched between them, loaded with tension. Everything to do with the photograph he'd found, the father she'd lost, and the war neither had officially declared yet. You're hired, Roman said finally. Start Monday. Salary is generous. Betray me and they'll never find your body. Clear? Crystal. He stepped even closer. Isabella's heart hammered against her ribs. Not from fear, but from the electric charge when predators recognized each other. His hand reached up. For one insane moment, she thought he might touch her face. Instead, he pulled something from his jacket pocket. The photograph. Her father's face stared up at them both. You dropped this, Roman said softly and dangerously. At my club. I'm returning it because I'm a gentleman. Isabella's fingers closed around it, their hands touching briefly. His skin was warm, human. It should have been cold and reptilian and monstrous. Thank you, she managed to say. He looks familiar. Roman continued watching her with laser focus. Your father? Here it was, the moment of truth she'd been preparing for. Yes. He died 5 years ago, murdered. She let the word hang in the air like a noose. The men who killed him never paid for it. I'm sorry for your loss. His voice was genuine, which made everything worse. Chicago can be a cruel city, dangerous for good people. And what about bad people? Isabella asked, her gray eyes boring into his black ones. What does Chicago do to them? Roman smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Eventually, Isabella Martinez. This city destroys us all. It's just a question of who destroys whom first. He turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing through the gallery, like a countdown to something inevitable. Isabella stood there clutching the photograph, her heart racing, her mind screaming warnings her body refused to hear. This was going to be so much harder than she'd thought. Because somewhere between the hatred and the mission, she'd felt something when he touched her hand. Something that felt terrifyingly like attraction to the man who'd made her an orphan. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. The gallery became Isabella's gilded cage. For 2 weeks, she cataloged paintings worth millions, authenticated signatures of dead masters, and smiled at wealthy collectors who saw art as investment rather than soul. And every single day, Roman watched her with eyes that missed nothing. He never mentioned her father again, never acknowledged the photograph, but the awareness hung between them like smoke, visible, suffocating, impossible to ignore. The painting arrived Thursday, Roman said, appearing behind her. She was examining art that looked like bleeding sadness on canvas. His presence always announced itself, the way prey animals sense predators. I need you to verify it's real before the auction. Isabella turned, maintaining the professional distance that was becoming harder each day. He wore charcoal gray today, shirt unbuttoned just enough to suggest casualness that didn't exist in any part of Roman's calculated world. The piece from the Paris collection. That's a $14 million painting, 16 if it's genuine. He moved closer, studying not the painting but her. I trust your eyes, Isabella. You see things others miss. The double meaning wasn't subtle. And if it's a fake, then someone loses more than money. His smile held winter. I hate being deceived. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was the biggest deception in his life right now. Standing 3 feet away, planning his destruction, while her traitorous body responded to his proximity like flame to gasoline. I'll need access to your private records, she said, keeping her voice steady. Authentication requires documentation. Purchase history. Previous appraisals. Roman's eyes narrowed slightly, the predator recognizing a move on the chessboard. My private records are private for reasons that should be obvious. Then find another art consultant. Isabella turned back to the painting, dismissing him. I don't authenticate blind. The silence stretched. She could feel his presence like heat against her back. Could imagine him weighing options, calculating risk versus reward. Fine, he said finally. But you work from my office under my supervision. Those records never leave my sight. She'd counted on that. Victor needed information. Bank transactions, shipping manifests, anything that could expose Roman's operations. Working in his office was exactly where she needed to be. When do we start? Now. Roman's private office occupied the top floor, and it was nothing like Isabella expected. She'd imagined cold luxury, steel and glass monuments to ego. Instead, she found warmth, wooden bookshelves lined with old books, a piano in the corner covered with handwritten sheet music, walls painted deep red that felt like being inside a beating heart. You play? She asked, drawn to the piano despite herself. I used to. Roman moved to his desk, unlocking drawers. Before I learned that beautiful things break easily in my world. There was something in his voice. Not quite regret. Not quite longing. Something human that he shouldn't possess. That made him harder to hate. Isabella forced herself to focus, sitting across from him as he spread documents between them. Purchase orders, shipping receipts, certificates going back decades. But her trained eye caught other things, coded notations in margins, numbers that didn't align with listed prices, patterns that suggested money moving through art, like water through cupped hands. This deal, she said, pointing to a receipt from 2019. listed at $400,000. But the notation here suggests actual payment of $2.3 million. Roman didn't even glance at it. You're observant. I'm thorough. There's a difference. Is there? He leaned back, studying her with that unnerving intensity. Or are you looking for something specific? Isabella Martinez? Her heart stuttered, but she kept her expression neutral. Just doing the job you hired me for. The job right. He stood moving to the window overlooking downtown. Tell me something. Why did you really come to my club that night? Out of all the places in this city, why mine? This was it, the confrontation she'd been preparing for. Maybe I like dangerous places, she said carefully. Or maybe you were looking for someone dangerous. He turned. The afternoon light painted him in shades of gold and shadow. Your father worked for people connected to my organization. It's not a large leap to think you're here for more than art authentication. Isabella stood, refusing to be cornered, sitting down. My father was murdered 5 years ago. If you know something about that, maybe you should tell me instead of playing games. The words hung between them like drawn weapons. Roman crossed the room in 3 strides. Suddenly he was right there, close enough that she could see gold flecks in his dark eyes. Could count each stubble on his jawline. I know a lot of things, Isabella. His voice dropped to something almost intimate. I know you're not who you pretend to be. I know you're playing a game that could get you killed. And I know. He reached up his fingers, stopping just short of touching her face, that you feel this too. This thing between us that shouldn't exist. Her breath caught. She should step back, should slap him, should do anything except stand there drowning in the truth of his words. I feel nothing. She lied. Liar. But he smiled, and it transformed his face. You're a good liar, though. Almost as good as me. The moment shattered when his phone rang. Roman answered, his expression shifting to stone. When? Where? His jaw tightened. Secure the perimeter. I'm coming now. He hung up, already moving toward the door. Come with me. What, why? Because you wanted access to my world, Isabella. Now you're going to see exactly what that means. 20 minutes later, Isabella found herself in a warehouse. It smelled of rust and fear. Roman's men surrounded a kneeling figure, a young man, maybe 25, bleeding from a split lip, terror written across his features. This is David Chen, Roman said, his voice empty of the warmth from his office. This was the other Roman, the one who executed traitors in darkness. He's been stealing from me, $30,000 over 6 months, thinking I wouldn't notice. Mr. Roman, please. David's voice cracked. I have a daughter. She's sick. The medical bills and... My sympathy doesn't change the theft. How? Roman pulled out his gun like someone reaching for car keys. You knew the rules when you started working for me. Isabella's stomach turned. This was why she was here. To witness this monster. To remember what he'd done to her father. To feel nothing but hatred. But then Roman's eyes found hers across the warehouse. And she saw something unexpected. A question, a test maybe, or perhaps something more complicated. How much does your daughter need? Isabella heard herself ask. Everyone turned to her. David's eyes widened with desperate hope. Roman's expression remained unreadable. Miss David stammered. For her treatment, how much? 40,000. But I only took 30. I swear I was going to pay it back. You were going to pay back stolen money with what? More stolen money? Roman's voice cut like razors. That's not how this works. Isabella stepped forward. Some reckless part of her taking control. Then let me make an alternative proposal. He works off the debt. Legitimate work supervised. With his salary reduced until you're repaid with interest. His daughter gets treatment. You get your money back. Everyone lives. The silence was deafening. Roman stared at her like she'd grown a second head. You're suggesting I show mercy to a thief? I'm suggesting that killing him solves nothing, and costs you a worker. Dead men can't repay debts. Dead men can't steal again either. True. Isabella moved closer to Roman, lowering her voice so only he could hear. But living men can become loyal. Fear creates followers. Mercy creates believers. Your choice which legacy you want. Something flickered across Roman's face. Surprise. Consideration. Something that looked dangerously like respect. He turned back to David, gun still drawn. The warehouse held its collective breath. You have 6 months to repay 45,000, Roman said finally. You'll work in my legitimate businesses, every movement monitored. If you steal again, if you run, if you breathe wrong, I won't be this generous. And you'll thank Isabella Martinez every single day, because she just saved your miserable life. David collapsed in sobs of relief. Roman's men looked confused, exchanging glances that questioned everything they thought they knew about their boss. Roman holstered his weapon and walked out without another word. Isabella found him outside, leaning against his car, staring at the setting sun painting Chicago in blood colors. That was stupid, he said when she approached. Showing mercy makes me look weak. That was human, she corrected. There's a difference. He laughed, but it sounded hollow. I'm not human. Isabella, I stopped being human the first time I killed someone. I was 12. The confession landed like a blow. Isabella's carefully constructed hate wavered. My father. Roman continued staring at nothing. He was a drunk who beat my mother and sold me to Don Ricardo to settle a debt. Ricardo made me kill a man who'd stolen from him. Put a gun in my 12-year-old hands and said, "Prove you're worth keeping alive." So I did, and I've been proving it ever since. Isabella didn't know what to say. This wasn't the monster she'd imagined. This was something infinitely more complicated. A victim who'd become a villain, a child forced into darkness who never found the light. Why are you telling me this? She whispered. Roman finally looked at her. His eyes held exhaustion that went bone deep. Because you looked at me in that warehouse like I could be something other than a monster. And for one stupid moment, I wanted to believe you. He opened the car door. I'm taking you home, and Isabella, whatever game you're playing, whatever reason you're really here, be careful. Because I'm starting to care whether you survive it. And that makes you the most dangerous person in my life. The drive back was silent, charged with confessions neither could take back. When they reached her apartment, Roman spoke one last time. Your father, Miguel Martinez. I need you to know something. Isabella's blood turned to ice. The order to kill him came from Don Ricardo. He told me Miguel was an FBI informant, that he was betraying families. I followed orders because that's what soldiers do. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. But I've recently learned the evidence might have been made up, that your father might have been innocent. The world tilted. Isabella gripped the door handle to keep from falling. If that's true. Roman continued, his voice rough. Then, I killed an innocent man, and no amount of mercy in warehouses will ever make that right. He drove away before she could respond, leaving her standing on the sidewalk, with her entire mission crumbling around her. Because if Roman was telling the truth, if Ricardo had made everything up, then who had really killed her father? And why had Uncle Victor never mentioned that possibility? Isabella didn't sleep for 3 days. She tore through every document Victor had given her, searching for mentions of Ricardo, looking for inconsistencies in the story. She'd built her entire revenge around. Coffee went cold on her desk as dawn bled into her apartment, painting everything in shades of doubt. Her phone buzzed. Victor. Progress report now. They met in the park. The autumn wind off the lake cut through her jacket. Victor sat on a bench feeding pigeons, playing the harmless old man. But Isabella knew better. She'd seen him break a man's fingers for being 2 minutes late. "You're getting close to him," Victor said without looking at her. "Good. Has he shared any shipping schedules? Bank account access codes?" "He told me about my father," Isabella said instead. "About Ricardo ordering the hit. About made-up evidence." Victor's hand stilled over the birdseed. "And you believed him? Is it true? Is it true that the evidence might have been manufactured?" Her voice rose enough to scatter the pigeons. "That my father might have been innocent? That Roman was just following orders based on lies?" Victor stood, his fatherly mask slipping to reveal something colder underneath. "Does it matter?" Roman pulled the trigger. "Your father is still dead. The man responsible is still breathing. It matters if we're aiming at the wrong target." The slap came so fast Isabella barely registered it, before her cheek exploded in pain. She stumbled back, hand flying to her face, staring at her uncle with shock that tasted like blood. "You're falling for him," Victor hissed, grabbing her arm hard enough to bruise. "I warned you this might happen. He's good at making people believe he's human. That's how predators work, Isabella. They make you trust them before they devour you. Let go of me. Not until you remember why you're there." His fingers dug deeper. "Roman murdered your father in cold blood. He's murdered dozens. He's a cancer in this city. And you're the knife that's going to cut him out. Don't forget that." Isabella wrenched free, stepping back. "I haven't forgotten anything, but I'm not going to be your weapon if you're lying to me. Then you're useless to me." Victor's voice went flat, and that was somehow more terrifying than his anger. "And useless things don't survive long in our world. Complete the mission, Isabella, or I'll find someone who will." He walked away, leaving her standing among scattered birdseed and shattered certainty. Isabella went to work that afternoon, with makeup covering the bruise, and questions she couldn't voice burning holes in her composure. The gallery was unusually quiet. No collectors, no staff, just classical music drifting from Roman's office upstairs. She found him at the piano, actually playing this time, the notes falling like rain against windows, sad and beautiful, completely at odds with the man who murdered for a living. He stopped when he sensed her presence, hands stilling over keys. "I didn't think you'd come back." "Why wouldn't I?" "Because I told you I killed your father." Roman turned on the bench. His eyes found the makeup on her cheek with laser precision. "What happened to your face?" "Nothing." I walked into a cabinet. He was on his feet in seconds, crossing the space between them before she could retreat. His fingers caught her chin gently, tilting her face into better light. The touch was nothing like Victor's violence. Careful, almost reverent. "That's not a cabinet bruise," Roman said softly and dangerously. "That's a handprint. Someone hit you." Isabella pulled away, but the damage was done. He'd seen. He knew. Who? One word carrying the weight of execution orders. "It doesn't matter. It matters to me." His voice dropped to something that made her spine straighten. "Give me a name, Isabella." This was spiraling wrong. She needed to redirect, to regain control. "Why do you care? I'm just your employee, your convenient art consultant who you suspect is playing games. You stopped being just anything the moment you walked into my club." Roman moved back to the piano, but his posture remained coiled. Predatory. "I've been thinking about what you said in the warehouse, about mercy creating believers, about choosing legacy. And I looked into your father's case. Really looked. Beyond the file Ricardo gave me." His hands moved over the piano keys without pressing down, tracing melodies only he could hear. There was no FBI contact. Agent Morrison testified under oath 3 years ago that he'd never heard of Miguel Martinez. The bank records showing payoffs were made up. The wiretaps never existed. Isabella's legs felt suddenly weak. She sank into the leather chair by his desk, her entire world restructuring itself around this confirmation. Ricardo lied. Roman continued, finally pressing keys that released haunting notes into the air. He manufactured evidence to make me kill an innocent man. The question is why? Why are you telling me this? Isabella's voice cracked. If you know who I am, if you know I'm here for revenge, because you deserve the truth, and because... He stopped playing, turning to face her fully. Because I'm tired of living in a world built on lies. My whole life has been following orders without questioning, trusting men who saw me as a weapon instead of a human being. I'm done with that. The vulnerability in his admission hit her harder than Victor's slap. This was Roman without armor, offering honesty like an olive branch across a battlefield. My uncle is the one who sent me. Isabella heard herself confess. Victor Martinez. He told me you killed my father in cold blood, that you were a monster who needed to be stopped. He trained me for 3 years to get close to you, to gather evidence, to kill me. Roman finished calmly. I assumed as much. You knew? I suspected? The photograph was too convenient, your appearance too perfectly timed. But... He stood moving toward her with measured steps. Someone approaching a wounded animal. I kept you close anyway. Because I wanted to understand why you fascinated me, why you made me question everything I've built. He crouched before her chair, eye level now, close enough that she could see the exhaustion etched into his features. Ask me, Isabella. Ask me what you really want to know. Did you know? Her eyes burned with tears she refused to shed when you pulled that trigger. Did you know my father was innocent? No. One word. Absolute and unwavering. I swear on everything I am. I believed Ricardo. I thought I was protecting families from a traitor. I was 29, hungry to prove myself, desperate for approval from the only father figure I'd ever known. I didn't question. I should have, but I didn't. A tear escaped despite her best efforts. Roman caught it with his thumb, the gesture so tender it shattered something in her chest. I can't take back what I did, he whispered. I can't bring him back, but I can give you the man who's really responsible. Ricardo manipulated both of us, killed your father, destroyed your life, and turned me into his weapon. Help me bring him down, Isabella. Help me make this right. It was insane, impossible. The enemy of her enemy offering alliance, when she should be plunging a knife into his heart. But looking into his eyes, she saw the same pain. That had been eating her alive for 5 years. Different source, same wound. My uncle, she said slowly. Victor. He never mentioned Ricardo making up evidence. He never suggested looking deeper. He just pointed me at you and said, revenge. Roman's expression darkened. Victor Martinez. I know that name. He worked for Ricardo in the old days. Before your father opened the restaurant, they had a falling out years ago over territory disputes. The pieces started falling into horrible place. He used me. He used my grief to turn me into exactly what I was. A weapon. Roman stood pulling her up with him. We're both victims of men who see people as tools, but we don't have to stay weapons, Isabella. We can choose something different. Before she could respond, before logic could override instinct. Roman's phone erupted with urgent buzzing. He answered, his body going rigid as he listened. How many? A pause. Secure all exits. I'm coming down. He hung up, already moving toward a hidden panel in the wall. It revealed an arsenal. We have a situation. Someone's breaching the gallery. Multiple attackers. What who? I don't know yet. But if you're with me, grab a gun and stay close. If you're not. He tossed her a gun, which she caught automatically. Victor's training taking over. Now's your chance to run, Isabella. Choose. The sound of shattering glass came from downstairs, shouting gunfire. Isabella checked the magazine, chambered around, and moved beside Roman. If we're doing this, we're doing it together. Something blazed in his eyes. Surprise, gratitude, something that looked dangerously like the beginning of trust. They descended the stairs into chaos. 5 men in tactical gear, faces covered, spreading through the gallery with military precision. Not robbery. This was assassination. Roman took down the first with 2 shots, clean and efficient. Isabella dropped behind a marble pillar. As bullets shattered priceless art around them, the second attacker swung toward her. She fired on instinct. Hitting center mass, he went down. The remaining 3 regrouped. That's when Isabella saw the tattoo on one attacker's exposed wrist, a serpent eating its tail, Victor's family symbol. Roman. She screamed the warning. As the largest attacker charged from his blind side, he turned too late. The knife caught him across the ribs, drawing blood that looked black in the gallery lighting. Roman staggered, but fired point blank, dropping his attacker. But the damage was done. Red spread across his white shirt like an accusation. Isabella moved without thinking, firing twice more to cover them. As Roman stumbled toward the back exit, they made it to his car, tires screaming as they peeled away. With bullets chasing them into Chicago traffic. How bad? Isabella pressed her jacket against his wound, blood hot and wet against her hands. Bad enough. Roman's face had gone pale, but his driving remained steady. Your uncle's message was clear. He's done with subtlety. He knows I talked to you. He knows I'm questioning. Her hands shook against his bleeding side. He's tying up loose ends, and we're both loose ends now. Roman took a corner hard. The movement made him grunt in pain. My safe house. 20 minutes. We get there. I can patch this up, and we figure out our next move. But the blood kept coming, soaking through her jacket, through her fingers. Hot and terrifying. Roman's skin was cooling under her touch, his breathing getting shallow. Stay with me, she commanded, her voice breaking. You don't get to die before I decide whether to forgive you. He laughed, which turned into a cough, that spattered blood on the steering wheel. Is that a maybe on forgiveness? It's a definitely if you stay alive, you idiot. They made it to the safe house. A plain brownstone in a quiet neighborhood, where no one asked questions. Isabella helped Roman inside. He collapsed onto a leather couch. That had probably seen this scenario before. Medical kit. He gasped, pointing to a cabinet, whiskey needle and thread in the sterilized pack. Isabella had seen her share of injuries during Victor's training, but nothing prepared her for cutting open Roman's shirt and seeing the knife wound. Deep, still bleeding, the kind that needed a hospital and trained doctors. This needs stitches beyond my skill level, she said, hands hovering uselessly. Then learn fast. He took a long pull of whiskey, then poured it directly on the wound. His back arched with pain, but he didn't scream. I can't go to a hospital. Too many questions. Too many people who want me dead would know where to find me. So Isabella did what she'd been trained to do. She shut down emotion, let instinct take over. And she stitched Roman back together with shaking hands, while he gripped the couch hard enough to crack leather. When it was done, when he was bandaged and medicated and finally sleeping, Isabella sat on the floor beside the couch and let herself fall apart. She cried for her father, for the lies, for the 5 years wasted on revenge aimed at the wrong target, for the man bleeding on the couch who'd shown her more honesty in 2 weeks than her own uncle had in a lifetime, and underneath all of it, terrifying and undeniable, she cried for the realization that somewhere between the hatred and the truth, she'd started caring whether Roman lived or died, which made her the biggest fool of all. Roman woke to the smell of coffee and the unfamiliar sensation of someone caring whether he lived. Isabella sat in the chair across from him, still wearing yesterday's blood-stained clothes. Dark circles under storm-gray eyes that hadn't seen sleep. She looked like a warrior after battle. Exhausted. Beautiful. Dangerous. You were still here. He said, his voice rough from pain and medication. Where else would I go? My uncle wants me dead. Your enemies want you dead. We're safest together. She handed him coffee, their fingers brushing. Neither pulled away. How's the pain? I've had worse. A lie. But Roman had been lying about pain since he was 12. The stitches will hold. I'm better at field medicine than I thought. Something haunted crossed her expression. My uncle trained me well, for all the wrong reasons. But well. The mention of Victor shifted the atmosphere. Roman pushed himself up carefully, testing his body's limits. The wound pulled but didn't tear. Isabella had done good work. We need to talk about what happens next, he said. I know. Isabella sat down her coffee, meeting his eyes with the directness he'd come to expect. Victor will come for both of us now. He can't risk me telling you whatever secrets he's kept, and Ricardo, if he made up evidence to have my father killed, there's a reason. We need to find out why. Roman stood slowly, moving to the window. Dawn painted Chicago in shades of amber and shadow. A city that had taken everything from both of them and given back only scars. Your father's restaurant, he said slowly, pieces clicking together. It was in Little Italy, near the old waterfront district. That area has been prime real estate for development for years. If someone wanted to build there, they'd need to clear out the old establishments first. Isabella's eyes widened. The restaurant building. It's been empty since my father died. I couldn't afford to keep it. Couldn't bear to sell it. It's just been sitting there. Who owns the surrounding properties? I don't know. After my father's death, I couldn't focus on anything. Victor handled the paperwork, said he'd take care of the legal complications. She stopped. Realization hitting like physical force. He wanted the building. Roman turned from the window, his strategic mind assembling the puzzle. Victor and Ricardo have been business partners for decades. If they wanted that whole block for development, your father's refusal to sell would have been a problem, an insurmountable problem. Unless he was dead, and his grieving daughter was too destroyed to care about property. Isabella's voice went hollow. They killed him for real estate, for money. The rage that crossed her face was bright and burning, and Roman recognized it intimately. He'd worn that same expression at 12, standing over his father's body after Ricardo made him pull the trigger. The moment innocence died, and vengeance was born. We need proof. Roman said already, pulling out his laptop. Bank records, property deeds, development permits. If Ricardo and Victor are partners in this, there will be a paper trail. They worked in tandem, Isabella using credentials Victor had given her, to access family financial records, while Roman hacked into city databases with tools that cost more than most people's houses. Hours blurred together. Coffee turned cold. Daylight shifted across the room, and gradually the conspiracy revealed itself, in spreadsheets and signatures. Here, Isabella said, her voice tight. 6 months before my father died. Victor took out a loan for $12 million. Collateral listed as future property acquisitions. In Development Zone 7. Zone 7 is Little Italy. Roman pulled up another file. And look. 3 months after your father's death, Ricardo's holding company purchased the entire block through shell corporations. Current value $43 million, with luxury condos breaking ground next spring. The evidence was damning, impossible to deny. They'd murdered Miguel Martinez for profit margins and waterfront views. Isabella stood abruptly, pacing like a caged animal. They used his death, used my grief. Victor probably watched me cry at the funeral while calculating his return on investment. And he used me as the weapon, Roman added, his own rage building, pointed me at an innocent man. Let me carry the guilt, all while he profited from the kill. We're both victims of the same manipulation. Their eyes met across the room, and in that moment, something fundamental shifted. Not quite forgiveness. Too much blood lay between them for that. But understanding, alliance, recognition of shared trauma inflicted by men who saw people as pawns. Isabella moved first, crossing the space between them. We destroy them, both of them. We take everything they've built and burn it to the ground. Agreed. Roman caught her hand, thumb brushing across her knuckles, but we do it smart. Calculated. We can't just kill them. We dismantle their empire piece by piece. Expose their crimes. Make sure they lose everything before they lose their lives. How? I have copies of my entire organization's financial records. Everything Ricardo thinks is hidden. We combine that with what you can access through Victor's accounts. We have enough evidence to bring down both families. His grip tightened. But Isabella, once we start this, there's no going back. They'll come at us with everything. We'll be marked for death by every soldier in Chicago. She didn't hesitate. Good. Let them come. The steel in her voice sent something hot through Roman's chest. Admiration, desire, something that felt dangerously like pride. This woman who should hate him, who had every right to put a bullet in his head, was instead standing with him, against the men who destroyed both their lives. There's something you should know, Isabella said quietly. Before we do this. Before we cross the line together. What? She stepped closer. Roman could smell flower perfume mixed with coffee and fear and determination. When I stitched you up last night, when I thought you might die, I realized I don't want you dead anymore. Roman, I don't forgive you, not completely. But I understand you. And that's more dangerous than hatred ever was. The confession hung between them like a lit fuse. Roman should step back, should maintain distance, should remember that mixing business with emotion got people killed in his world. Instead, he reached up and cupped her face, his thumb tracing the bruise Victor had left. He put his hands on you. That alone is enough reason to destroy him. This isn't about protecting me. Yes, it is. The admission came out rough and honest. Somewhere between you walking into my club and you saving my life. This became personal. Not just revenge. Not just strategy. You became someone He stopped searching for words he hadn't needed in years. Someone I can't lose. Isabella's breath hitched. Roman. The kiss happened like violence and tenderness colliding. She grabbed his shirt, mindful of his wound, and pulled him down to her level, his hands buried in her hair, angling her head to deepen the kiss. That tasted like coffee and desperation, and 5 years of misdirected rage finally finding its true target. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Roman rested his forehead against hers. This is a terrible idea. The worst. Isabella agreed, her fingers still twisted in his shirt. We're supposed to be enemies. We are enemies, just not each other's anymore. The moment shattered when Roman's phone erupted with vibration. He pulled it out, reading the message. His expression went lethal. What is it? Isabella asked. Ricardo. He's calling a meeting tomorrow night. At the estate. All family heads. He's declared me a traitor for the gallery attack. Put a price on my head. Roman's jaw clenched. 5 million for whoever brings in my corpse. They're consolidating power, preparing to eliminate you officially, which means this is our window. If we're going to move against them, it has to be now, before they have time to secure their positions. He started typing rapidly. I'm calling in every favor I have. Every soldier still loyal to me over Ricardo. We have 24 hours to build an army. I'll get the financial evidence compiled, ready to leak to every news outlet and law enforcement agency simultaneously. Isabella grabbed her phone, her mind clearly racing through strategy. When we hit them so hard there's nothing left to rebuild. They worked through the day into evening, making calls, transferring files, building a case that would destroy decades of criminal empire. Roman reached out to families who'd grown tired of Ricardo's iron grip. Isabella compiled evidence that would put both men in prison for multiple lifetimes. By midnight, they had 12 soldiers confirmed, enough evidence to sink a battleship, and a plan that was 50% brilliant, 50% suicidal. We need to sleep, Roman said, though his body was wired on adrenaline and pain medication. Tomorrow's going to be hell. There's only one bed, Isabella observed, looking at the safe house's single bedroom. I'll take the couch. You're injured. You need the bed. She paused. Something vulnerable crossing her features. Or we could share. Just sleep. I don't want to be alone tonight. Roman understood that. The exhaustion, the fear, the need for human contact before possible death. Okay. They lay on opposite sides of the bed at first. Careful not to touch. Two damaged people trying not to inflict more wounds, but sometime in the dark hours before dawn. Isabella shifted closer, and Roman's arm came around her automatically, pulling her against his uninjured side. Tell me something true, she whispered into the darkness. Something you've never told anyone. Roman stared at the ceiling, feeling her heart beat against his ribs. When I killed your father. I went home and threw up for 3 hours. I told myself it was the whiskey, but I knew better. Some part of me understood even then that something was wrong, that I'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Isabella was quiet for a long moment. My father used to sing Italian opera while cooking Sunday dinner, terribly, completely off-key. But he was so happy doing it. Her voice cracked. I haven't been able to listen to opera since he died. It hurts too much. I'm sorry. The words were inadequate, microscopic against the magnitude of what he'd taken from her. I know you are. She turned in his arms, her gray eyes finding his in the darkness. And that's why this is so complicated. Because I want to hate you, Roman. It would be so much easier. But you're not the monster I came here to destroy. You're just another broken thing. In a world that breaks everyone eventually. He kissed her forehead, gentle as prayer. Tomorrow we break the men who broke us. Together. Together. She agreed. And finally they slept. Roman woke before dawn to find Isabella gone. Panic seized him immediately. He checked the bathroom, the kitchen, the entire safe house. Her jacket was missing, her phone gone. Then he saw it, the note on the pillow where her head had been, written in elegant script that made his blood run cold. Roman. I'm sorry. Victor called. He has insurance I didn't know about. Records that would destroy what's left of my father's name. Paint him as the criminal Ricardo claimed. I can't let my father's memory be destroyed. I have to meet him alone. If I'm not back by noon, assume the worst. The evidence against Ricardo is on the encrypted drive in the kitchen drawer. Use it. Burn them down even if I can't be there to watch. Roman's hands shook with rage and terror. She'd gone to face Victor alone, trading herself for her father's reputation. The woman he was falling for had just walked into a death trap, and he had exactly 6 hours to find her, before Victor made sure she never walked out. Roman drove through Chicago like a man possessed, his wounds screaming protest with every sharp turn. The pain was nothing compared to the terror clawing at his chest, the image of Isabella facing Victor alone. walking into sacrifice like some martyred saint. He'd made 3 calls. First to Marcus, his second in command. Track every property Victor owns. Church, warehouse, anything. I need locations now. Second to his best hacker. Break into Victor's phone records. Find his last location, ping. Third to Tony. Assemble everyone still loyal, armed. I'm going to war and I need soldiers willing to die today. The responses came back within 20 minutes. Victor's last known location, an abandoned meat processing plant on the south side. The kind of place where screams got lost in industrial decay, and bodies disappeared into furnaces. Roman's hands tightened on the steering wheel, until his knuckles went white. The building loomed against the gray morning sky like a tombstone. Roman parked 3 blocks away, checking his weapons with methodical precision. Someone who'd done this 1,000 times. 2 guns, spare magazines, a knife strapped to his ankle. His wound throbbed, fresh blood seeping through the bandage. But he pushed the pain into a box in his mind. Labeled deal with later. Right now, only Isabella mattered. He entered through a side entrance. That his contacts confirmed was the least guarded. The plant smelled of rust and old meat, and death that had happened here long before today. His footsteps were silent on concrete. As he moved through corridors, that had witnessed decades of Chicago's ugliest secrets. Voices drifted from the main processing floor. Victor's cultured accent, and another voice Roman would recognize in hell. Ricardo. Both of them here. Both of them with Isabella. Roman positioned himself behind a support column, where he could see without being seen. The sight made his blood freeze. Isabella was bound to a metal chair in the center of the vast space, blood trickling from a split lip, defiance still blazing in her storm-gray eyes. Despite the obvious beating she'd taken, Victor circled her like a shark, while Ricardo sat on a crate smoking a cigar, watching with detached interest. Someone evaluating livestock. You were always too emotional. Like your father, Victor was saying, his voice carrying fatherly disappointment. That made Roman's trigger finger itch. Miguel couldn't see the bigger picture either. He actually believed that restaurant meant something. Beyond profit margins, he believed in family. Isabella spat blood on her teeth. Something you've never understood. The backhand came fast, snapping her head to the side. Roman's body moved instinctively forward before his brain stopped him. Not yet. He needed to hear more. Understand the full scope before he acted. Family is a fairy tale we tell ourselves to feel less alone. Victor said, shaking out his hand. Your father learned that lesson, when I put those bullets in his chest. Oh yes, Isabella. Did you think I'd let Roman have all the fun? I was there. I watched Miguel beg for his life, promising he'd sign over the property. But by then, it was too late. Dead men's signatures are easier to forge. The revelation hit Roman like a physical blow. Victor had been there, had possibly even pulled the trigger himself, while Roman was just the convenient scapegoat. Isabella's face had gone pale, but her voice remained steady. You killed your own brother. Half-brother, Victor corrected. And he was weak, just like you're proving to be. Choosing Roman of all people. The man who helped murder your father. The man you manipulated into doing your dirty work, Isabella shot back. Roman was a weapon you aimed. The guilt belongs to the one who pulled the trigger. You. Ricardo laughed, the sound like grinding stones. She's got spirit, Victor, almost ashamed to waste it. He stood moving closer to Isabella. But business is business. You and Roman know too much. The evidence you've compiled would dismantle everything we've built. Can't have that. Roman won't stop, Isabella said. And Roman heard something in her voice that made his chest tighten. Faith. She believed he'd come. He'll burn your entire empire down. Let him try. Ricardo pulled out a gun, checking the chamber with casual expertise. We've got 50 men surrounding this building. When he comes for you, and the fool will come, we'll be ready. You're bait, sweetheart. Very effective bait. This was the trap. They wanted him here. Wanted him emotional and reckless. Every instinct Roman had screamed to wait for backup, to be strategic. But looking at Isabella bleeding in that chair, knowing she'd walked into hell to protect her father's memory, strategy evaporated into something more primal. He stepped out from behind the column, both guns raised. "Then let's not disappoint them," Roman said, his voice carrying across the empty space. 7 things happened simultaneously. Victor spun toward him, reaching for his weapon. Ricardo's gun swung toward Isabella's head. Roman fired twice, dropping 2 guards he'd sensed behind him without looking. The main doors exploded inward, as Marcus and 8 of Roman's soldiers stormed in, guns blazing. Isabella threw herself backward in the chair, tipping it to get out of Ricardo's line of fire. Glass shattered from the upper windows as Tony's team dropped in from the roof, and the world became gunfire and chaos. Roman moved through it like he'd been born for this moment. He put 3 rounds into guards charging from the left, dropped and rolled to avoid return fire, came up shooting. Beside him, Marcus was a whirlwind of violence, covering his blind spots with the synchronization of soldiers who'd survived 100 battles together. But Roman's focus never wavered from Isabella. He fought his way across the processing floor, every step a small war, until he reached her. 1 shot severed the ropes binding her wrists. She was up instantly, grabbing a fallen guard's weapon with practiced efficiency. That reminded him she'd been trained for this. "You came," she said, breathless and alive. "Did you doubt it?" He handed her one of his guns. "Stay behind me. I don't stay behind anyone." She fired past his shoulder, dropping a guard he hadn't seen. "We fight together or not at all." Something fierce and possessive roared through Roman's chest. This woman. This impossible, magnificent woman. They moved as one unit, back to back, covering each other through the firefight. That was slowly turning in their favor. Ricardo's men were well trained, but Roman's soldiers fought with the desperation of those who knew their boss would die for them, and that made all the difference. The shooting stopped as suddenly as it started, leaving only smoke and ringing ears, and bodies scattered like discarded puppets. Victor and Ricardo had retreated to a corner office. Barricaded behind steel doors, Roman could hear them shouting, arguing about escape routes and betrayals, and who was to blame for the plan falling apart. "It's over," Roman called out, his voice carrying deadly promise. "Come out, or we come in. Either way, you die today." "You think you've won?" Ricardo's voice echoed back, thick with rage. "You're a dead man, Roman. Every family in Chicago will hunt you for this. Let them try." Roman glanced at Isabella, seeing his own determination reflected in her eyes. "We have enough evidence to put you away for 10 lifetimes. Financial records, witness testimonies, everything. You're done." Silence. "Then what do you want?" "The truth," Isabella said, stepping forward, on record. "About my father, about Miguel Martinez. You tell the world what you did, or we execute you right here. And let the evidence speak for itself." More silence, whispered argument behind the steel. The door opened slowly. Victor emerged first, hands raised, face a mask of defeat that Roman didn't trust for a second. Ricardo followed, still holding his gun, but pointed at the ground. "Miguel was innocent," Ricardo said flatly, the words clearly bitter. "We made up evidence to have him killed, because he refused to sell his property. The entire block was worth $43 million in development potential. He was an obstacle. We removed him, and you used me," Roman added, his gun never wavering. "Made me your weapon. Made me your executioner." "You were always a weapon," Ricardo said, and something in his eyes shifted. Calculation to resignation to desperate rage. From the moment I found you, 12 years old and shaking over your father's body, I made you into the perfect soldier. You should be thanking me. The confession should have brought satisfaction. Instead, Roman felt only hollowness, where revenge used to burn. You didn't make me anything, he said quietly. You just broke something that was already cracking, but I'm done being broken by you. He lowered his gun. Marcus called the feds. We're handing them over with full evidence. I want them to rot in prison, not get the mercy of a bullet. That's when Ricardo moved. The old man was faster than his age suggested, gun swinging up toward Roman with deadly intent. But Isabella was faster. She fired once, the shot precise. Ricardo's gun clattered to the ground. As he grabbed his shoulder, howling, Victor saw his opportunity in the distraction. He lunged for Isabella, a knife appearing in his hand from somewhere. Madness in his eyes. You ungrateful girl, after everything I did for you. Roman's world narrowed to that knife arcing toward Isabella's throat. He threw himself forward, catching Victor's wrist, twisting. Bone cracked. The knife fell. But Victor was desperate now, all calculated composure gone, fighting with the strength of someone who had nothing left to lose. They grappled across the floor. Two men who'd caused so much pain, trying to destroy each other. Victor's elbow caught Roman's wound. White-hot agony exploded through his side. His grip loosened for just a second. Victor's hand found a gun, raised it toward Roman's head. Time slowed. The shot echoed like thunder, but it wasn't Roman who fell. Victor staggered backward, a red bloom spreading across his chest, shock written on his face. He looked down at the wound, then up at Isabella, who stood with smoking gun and tears streaming down her face. "That's for my father," she whispered, "and for every lie you told me." Victor collapsed, blood pooling beneath him, his last expression a mixture of surprise and something that might have been regret. Roman pulled himself to his feet, ignoring his screaming wound, and went to Isabella. She was shaking, the gun loose in her hand, staring at her uncle's body. "It's done," Roman said gently, taking the weapon from her. "It's over. Is it?" She looked up at him. Her eyes held devastation. "I killed him, Roman. My own blood. I'm just like you now." "No," he pulled her close, mindful of her injuries and his. "You're nothing like what I was. I killed for orders, for approval, for a system that used me. You killed for justice, for your father. There's a difference." Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer, the feds that Marcus had called, arriving to clean up the mess decades in the making. "We need to go," Marcus said, appearing beside them. "Now, before this gets complicated." But Roman didn't move. He cupped Isabella's face, forcing her to look at him. "I need you to know something, before the world caves in case we don't, in case this ends badly." "Roman, I'm falling in love with you," he said, the words raw and honest and terrifying. "I don't know when it happened, probably the moment you looked at me like I was worth saving, but I need you to know. Whatever happens next, you changed me. You made me want to be something more than a weapon." Isabella's tears fell harder, but she smiled through them. "You idiot. We're wanted by the police, hunted by criminal families, and you choose now to confess feelings. Terrible timing is kind of my specialty." She kissed him then, hard and desperate, tasting like blood and salt and new beginnings. When they broke apart, sirens were right outside. "There's something you don't know," Isabella said quickly. Her hand pressed against his chest. Something I found out 3 days ago. I was going to tell you after this was over. Tell me now. I'm pregnant, Roman." The words came out barely a whisper. 2 months. I wasn't sure how. But then I remembered that night after the warehouse, when we both needed comfort. When the world tilted, Roman stared at her, his mind unable to process this revelation, on top of everything else. Words failed him. We're having a baby. Isabella's hand covered her still flat stomach. I know this is the worst possible timing. I know we're in the middle of a war, but you needed to know before. The doors burst open. Federal agents poured in, weapons drawn, shouting orders that sounded like white noise compared to the truth ringing in Roman's ears. He was going to be a father. This woman who'd walked into his life planning to kill him was carrying his child. Everything he thought he knew about his future, shattered and reformed around this single impossible fact. Nobody move. An agent shouted, "Roman, Isabella Martinez, you're both under arrest." Roman looked at Isabella, beautiful, deadly pregnant Isabella, and made a decision that would either save them or damn them forever. "We surrender," he said, hands up. "But we have a deal to offer. Full testimony against the Ricardo organization. Every name, every crime, every secret. In exchange for witness protection for both of us, and immunity, the lead agent, a woman with steel gray hair, and eyes that had seen too much. Studied them carefully. That's a hell of an offer. What makes you think we'd take it?" Because Isabella stepped forward, her voice steady despite everything. "We can give you the biggest criminal network in Chicago history. 30 years of evidence, and we're the only ones who can testify to all of it and live." The agent's eyes narrowed. Then she lowered her weapon. "Let's talk." As they were led out into the cold Chicago morning, Roman's hand found Isabella's, their fingers intertwined. He felt her pulse, racing but strong, alive, real. They'd survived the abyss, but the real challenge was just beginning. The FBI safe house smelled of stale coffee and desperation. Agent Rebecca Walsh spread files across the table. Full testimony against Ricardo's organization. In exchange, witness protection, new identities, relocation. But first you wear wires. Draw out his network. Get confessions. Roman exchanged looks with Isabella, her hand unconsciously on her stomach. "We do this, and you guarantee protection for our child. Medical care. Everything." Walsh's expression softened. "You're pregnant. 2 months," Isabella said defiantly. "This baby gets a future without organized crime." Non-negotiable. Agreed. They were fitted with nearly invisible wires. Walsh briefed them quickly. "Ricardo made bail. He'll contact you, trying to assess damage. When he does sound conflicted, make him believe you're considering coming back." Roman's phone rang at 4:47 p.m. Ricardo's voice was smooth, fatherly. "Roman, we need to talk. Clear up misunderstandings. You mean making up evidence to make me murder an innocent man? You're thinking emotionally. That girl poisoned your mind." Ricardo's tone shifted. "The families won't forgive this. You're marked for death, but I can fix it. Come back, denounce her, and we make it disappear." And Isabella, a loose end that needs tying up. FBI agents recorded every word. "I'm not coming back," Roman said. "And you're not touching her. Then you're dead." Venom replaced the fatherly tone. "I made you Roman. Everything you are, you owe to me." "No. You weaponized a traumatized 12-year-old and called it mentorship. I'm done being your creation." Silence. "Then meet me tonight. The estate. Midnight. We settle this man to man. I'll be there." Walsh moved immediately. "That's suicide. That's the end game." Roman met Isabella's terrified eyes. He confesses. You record it, and it's over. You're not sacrificing yourself, Isabella said. Fury and fear colliding. Our child deserves a father. There's another option, Walsh interjected. We wire the estate, snipers on buildings. SWAT ready. Roman goes in. But we're everywhere. Roman looked at Isabella. The woman he loved, carrying their child. The reason he wanted to survive. Okay. But Isabella stays in protective custody. Non-negotiable. She buried her face in his chest. I hate this. You're protecting what matters most. He kissed her desperately. I will come back, I swear. You better? Because if you die, I'll bring you back just to kill you myself. Midnight. The estate loomed like a monument to violence. Roman climbed familiar stairs, wire recording everything, snipers watching from darkness. Ricardo waited in his study, silhouetted against Chicago's lights. You came alone as requested. Ricardo turned, and Roman saw genuine hurt in ancient eyes. Do you remember the first time I brought you here? You were 12. Your father's blood on your hands. I remember. I asked what you wanted. You said I want to never feel powerless again. I promised I'd make that happen, by turning me into a monster, by making you a king. Ricardo's composure cracked. You could have ruled this city. Instead, you threw it away for what? A woman? Love? Yes. I chose something real over your blood-soaked crown. You taught me power matters more than people, but Isabella taught me different, that the strongest thing is choosing to be better than what you made me. Ricardo's expression transformed to rage. She made you weak. She made me human. Then you've lost. His hand moved toward the desk drawer. Because humans die Roman. Legends live forever. FBI step away from the desk. Chaos exploded. Agents flooded in. Windows shattered. But Ricardo was faster, grabbing his gun, aiming not at agents but at Roman. If I can't have you as my legacy, no one will. The gun fired. Roman threw himself sideways, fire tearing across his shoulder. Agents swarmed Ricardo. As Roman hit the ground, blood hot against his skin. His last conscious thought was Isabella's face. He woke to morning light, and Isabella asleep beside his hospital bed, her hand clutching his. His movement woke her. Relief flooded her features. You absolute idiot. You got shot again. Did it work? Recorded confession, attempted murder, everything. Her smile was fierce. Multiple life sentences. It's over, Roman. We won. Weight lifted from his chest. And the baby? Perfectly healthy. We're okay. All three of us. Agent Walsh appeared, touching reunion. But Ricardo's loyalists want revenge. We move you into witness protection within 48 hours. New identities. New location. New life. Once you enter, Roman and Isabella Martinez cease to exist. Roman found only determination in Isabella's face. When do we leave? 2 days, maybe 3. After Walsh left, they sat in silence, absorbing the magnitude. Are you scared? Isabella asked, terrified. I don't know how to be anyone else. Then we'll learn together. She kissed him. New names, new city, just us and our baby, building something beautiful from wreckage. I love you, Isabella. You saved me. I love you too. We're quite a pair of disasters. The best kind. They stayed like that. 2 broken people learning to be whole, preparing to disappear into ordinary life. But in the shadows beyond one final threat waited. Antonio appeared in Roman's hospital room on the second night. Ricardo's former head of security. Came alone, hands visible. But danger radiated from him like heat. I'm not here to kill you, Antonio said before Roman could react. The old families want you dead. Witness protection won't save you. They have reach everywhere. He leaned closer. But I'm giving you a choice. Leave the country tonight. Disappear completely. Not into FBI custody, but really disappear. Take the girl. Go somewhere they'll never find you. Roman studied him. Why? I have a daughter, 7 years old. If someone gave me a chance to save her from this life, I'd take it. Antonio stood. 10 minutes. Then I was never here. Isabella appeared after he left. He's right. The FBI can't protect us forever. Then we run. Roman agreed, pulling her close. Really run. 48 hours later, they sat in a private plane, headed to Costa Rica. New passports reading Michael and Elena Brooks. A simple American couple seeking a fresh start. I'm leaving everything, Isabella whispered as Chicago disappeared below. My father's grave. Every memory. Roman took her hand. We're choosing who we become now. No more Ricardo. No more Victor. Just us. I've been thinking about names for the baby, Isabella said. If it's a girl, Lucia. It means light. And if it's a boy, Miguel. After my father. Roman's throat tightened. Perfect. Both perfect. Costa Rica's coastal town welcomed them, with ocean breezes and second chances. Their small house had white walls, tropical gardens, and a view of the Caribbean that stretched to forever. Roman took a job at the marina. Isabella started designing homes for people moving there. They built routines, watched sunsets, and slowly became ordinary people with extraordinary secrets. Do you miss it? Isabella asked one evening 3 months in. The power. I never really lived until now, Roman said, his hand on her growing belly. I survived. There's a difference. Lucia Rose Brooks was born on a humid August morning, screaming her arrival into a world that would never know who her parents had been. Roman held his daughter and understood finally, completely, what it meant to have something worth more than power. She was tiny, perfect, with gray eyes and dark hair, a miracle born from violence and desperate love. We made something pure, Isabella whispered. Roman couldn't speak. This child would never know the man he'd been, would never see violence as normal, would grow up with parents who chose love over everything. I promise to be worthy of you, he whispered to Lucia, every single day. 18 months passed like healing. Lucia took her first steps on the beach. The marina promoted Roman to manager. Isabella's design business thrived. They became Michael and Elena Brooks completely, the friendly American couple with the beautiful daughter. Then the past found them one final time. Roman was building sandcastles with Lucia. When a voice spoke behind him, Michael Brooks. He turned. Agent Rebecca Walsh stood there, in casual clothes, sunglasses hiding her eyes, every muscle tensed. Isabella moved toward Lucia protectively. Relax. Walsh said, hands visible. I'm on vacation. Just happened to run into old acquaintances. She handed Roman a folder. Ricardo died 3 months ago. Prison hit. Antonio turned state's evidence after. Every major player is dead or in custody. It's over. Completely over. Roman read through documents confirming her words. Death certificates, conviction records, collapsed organizations. Why tell us? Isabella asked. Because you can stop looking over your shoulder now. Walsh's eyes were genuinely kind. What you did took courage. You saved lives. You're raising a beautiful daughter away from that darkness. That's your redemption. After she left, Roman held Isabella close. It's really over. We were always free, Isabella said. From the moment we chose each other. That night after Lucia slept. They sat on their porch, watching moonlight paint silver across the ocean. Do you regret it? Isabella asked. Giving up everything. Roman turned her face toward his. Every woman wanted Roman. The power, the danger, the fear. But all that was empty. He kissed her softly. You wanted me dead, and somehow we found something real, something worth more than any empire. I love you, Michael Brooks. Boat manager. Terrible sandcastle architect. Best father I know. I love you too, Elena, even though you lie about my sandcastle skills. Inside, Lucia stirred. Together they went to their daughter, this miracle child born from impossible love. She reached up with tiny hands that held no concept of the violence that had led to her existence. Mama, Papa. Roman held her close, Isabella's arms around both of them. He understood now what power had never taught him, that the strongest thing a person could be was vulnerable, present, loved. 5 years later, Roman stood at the marina. Watching boats come in, Lucia, now 6, sat beside him, reading about ocean, animals. Papa octopuses have 3 hearts, that's amazing. He smiled. Isabella appeared with news written across her. Face Lucia's gonna be a big... Sister! We're having another baby! Lucia shrieked with joy. Roman pulled Isabella close, kissing her deeply. Another miracle, he whispered. That evening, Roman played piano while Isabella watched. From the doorway, her hand on her stomach, the music drifted over the town, as the Brooks family. Once Roman and Isabella, Martinez, once enemies, once broken, settled into another ordinary, extraordinary evening. Every woman had wanted Roman, the criminal boss, the killer, the crown. But he'd fallen for the one who wanted him, dead, and in dying to who he'd been, he'd finally learned how to live.